Hello, Robeson County, and welcome to Inside Athletics. I'm your host, Jonathan Bim of the Robisonian newspaper in Lumberton. Joining in the studio once again is Dolphus Pearson of WNCP and Brandon Tester of the Pine Needle. And guys, we saw a really good close game. Went down right to overtime between Fairmont and Red Springs last week. So, Brandon, we'll start with you. What did you see from another close one between Fairmont and Red Springs?
Well, I saw both teams shoot themselves in the foot repeatedly. There was a lot of penalties going on in that game. I think in the second quarter, Red Springs had a good opportunity to score and got a big illegal block penalty and unsportsmanlike. So it could have been a little bit more spread out than it was, but it was a very close game.
Yeah, and that's been the case. I mean, a lot of these games, especially with Red Springs have been plagued with penalties the past couple years. Lawrence Ches, the first-year coach, comes in and says, we're going to clean up and be more disciplined, and that's what we saw. Fairmont looked like the more undisciplined team out there, had several penalties, even though Red Springs did have a player that was disqualified from the game. But this was the third game in the last 3 years between Fairmont and Red Springs where both teams went down to the wire. It was a one-touchdown game. This time, Red Springs comes out with the victory. So, Dolphus, what did you see in overtime with those two teams?
Yeah, definitely. They were definitely fighting, to say the least. Both teams, you could tell they went out there playing hard for their seniors. That's a big game, Red Springs, Fairmont. I definitely want to say Fairmont, I thought they were going to pull it out. Fourth down, they went for a fade ball to Jordan Waters. He was double covered. Probably should have hit a check down option or something right there. But hats off to Red Springs. That was a great creativity going with a halfback pass on a 3rd and goal to win the game. I was actually caught off guard myself. It was definitely a great way to end it, a great ending for it, and definitely glad to see that for those Red Springs seniors. They definitely deserve it.
Yeah, you mentioned how the last play, the halfback pass from Nicory West to Jay-Sean Carthens, which was the walk-off touchdown, and then you mentioned how Jordan Waters was double covered all night. Those were the two guys that were double covered, and Jay-Sean Carthens was at the line just giving a quick hit, and then Nicory West, who is arguably the best defensive back in Robeson County, had him from there. They held him to only 6 catches for 71 yards and no touchdowns, which was a big thing for them. But I think the defense really took the biggest hit of momentum. They're coming with about 3 minutes to go. Lee McLean takes the kickoff and fumbles it at midfield, and Fairmont has a touchdown lead with 3:30 left, and they looked like all they needed was a couple first downs, and that game was over with. But then the defense from Red Springs holds. What did you see from the defense there?
Yeah, the defense was definitely stout. I could definitely see him come right around Jerome Bass, their senior leader at linebacker. He definitely did a great job, rallying those troops, and they made a big stand. And you can't really fault them for that. Fairmont, as you stated, had several opportunities to finish the game, put the game away after they got that last fumble from Lee McLean on the kickoff. That should have been the game right there. But you really, again, like I said, I can't tip my hat off enough to Red Springs. Those kids kept on fighting. They knew the odds were against them. And they really shut down a big-time player like Jordan Waters. So, again, like I said, they should be ecstatic over the win, but at the same time, they need to be focused and get ready for the last few games they have on their schedule.
Yeah, they have playoffs are well in their sights. They just have to make sure there's no hiccups along the way. They've got West Columbus and then St. Paul's, we'll talk about that later on in the show. But Brandon, this is the second time you've seen Red Springs come back with a big last-second drive or last-minute drive. They scored with 32 seconds to go. And Denham McKeithen really directed that offense for that last-second touchdown pass. What did you see from Denham in that offense there after they got the defensive stop in the fourth quarter?
Well, just in general, I've seen Denham grow up a lot as a quarterback. I mean, obviously that's not a position he has a lot of experience with, but you can tell he's kind of getting a good connection there, both with Lee McLean and his running backs and with the wide receivers, which will help him out greatly in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And speaking, we were just talking about Red Springs keeps their playoff hopes alive. St. Paul's also did as well with the 55-28 win over West Bladen. And it was basically the Noah Wheeler show. Noah Wheeler with 7 touchdowns as St. Paul's gets the big win. And now they are right there at 5-4 right now, trying to keep that playoff. I think you got to be about 6-5 to get one of those last playoff bids in. But you saw that first half of that game, and what did you see from Noah Wheeler? That was most of the scoring in the first half.
Yeah, definitely. And it's actually a little ironic because I saw Noah Wheeler early in the season against South Robb, and I remember I tweeted and I said, I didn't really, for him to be the reigning county player of the year, I didn't really see the playmaking ability. He didn't really exude that against the Mustangs. And I'll be the first one to say I paid him his respect after Friday. He put on an absolute dominating performance. As you said, 7 touchdowns, 6 rushing, 1 passing, and they just, completely routed West Bladen. There was a little scuffle that happened near the end of the first half, and, I touched on that last week at Carolina News Today. we're all big fans of all these schools. We cover them week in, week out. And, you guys just got to keep it clean. That's the biggest thing. You have to keep it clean out there. It's been too many games where players been ejected. The game is played in between the hashes, but again, not taking anything away from St. Paul's. They had an absolutely, dominating performance.
Yeah, now they have Whiteville coming up. Brandon, you saw Whiteville earlier. That's going to be a big game for St. Paul's right now. They have to get a win to even keep their playoff hopes relatively close. I mean, they have to win at least one game from here on out, but that Whiteville game will be a big matchup for them.
Yeah, and Whiteville's just coming off a big win over West Columbus. I think it was 56-0. So they're certainly riding a lot of momentum right now. And I saw them a couple weeks back against Red Springs, a very fluid team. They connect well with one another, so that's going to be a tough contest.
Yeah, a solid defensive team as well. And so they're a 2A team. South Columbus, East Bladen's a 2A team. Fairmont, Red Springs, and St. Paul's all round out the 2A part of the Three Rivers Conference. And now that playoff picture, basically there's 4 bids, maybe 5, possibly. But right now it looks like the big matchup will be the last week of the season between Red Springs and St. Paul's. The winner possibly gets one of those last bids in, or it might be both teams, but you don't want to chance it to a loss.
Definitely.
You never really want to, Dolphins, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I just want to say I really think the big showdown is going to be, as Brandon was saying, Denham Keatham has done a great job, maturing throughout this season, and Noah Williams really came into his own late in the season. So I definitely feel like it's going to be a showdown between both of those quarterbacks going into that game, especially with the playoff bid on the line. That's definitely the biggest thing as well.
Yeah, Lumberton hung around with Richmond for the first quarter, was tied at 14, but ended up falling on the road 49-27. It's like we put this on repeat. It's Braylon Grice once again. He did not score one touch. He scored all but one touchdown, so there wasn't some extra help there with Comadre Kennedy scoring the other touchdown for Lumberton. But Grice still with 3 touchdowns, and Grice is really just seeming to wheel the Pirates along right now.
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from those guys out of Lumberton, but it really is the Braylon Grice show. I mean, that's pretty much all it's been. He has some good supporting players around him. Quashik Breeden, that's one. Boo Boo McDougal has done some good things. I wasn't a big fan of him early in the year, but he's done some good things in the passing game as well. But it's just really tough because that defense is constantly on the field. And their defense is relatively their weak point of the team.
Yeah.
I definitely would say it's kind of tough for Grice, but just hang in there. Just hang in there, big fella. That's all we can say. Just keep on playing.
Yeah, and I like the quote that the Richmond coach, Brian Till, gave last week. He said Braylon Grice is probably one of the better running backs we're going to see all year. I mean, They go up against Zamir White and Smiley McQueen, but Grice is built like a running back.
Definitely.
And honestly, if Lumberton had a quarterback, put him at running back, and he would be pretty unstoppable. He'd be up there with Grice's numbers, or with Zamir's
numbers.
He would definitely be. I mean, he's right on track to possibly be the Robeson County Offensive Player of the Year right now. We'll have to see how it goes. But also, we were just talking about Noah Wheeler. Both of these guys run about the same style of offense. I mean, it's like the Pirates and St. Paul's have really figured out that, hey, we can run our quarterbacks almost like a wildcat. And Dolphins, what do you see about that offense that really seems to work right now? I mean, these teams are putting up points. I mean, Lumberton's not been as successful as St. Paul's.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the biggest thing about, the Wildcat formation is it's unpredictable. They can just hit you in the mouth with, 3-4 dives and powers in a row. And then next thing you know, you're pulling out an RPO and, hitting it for a touchdown. So that's the biggest thing. You really have to say it really comes down to being a disciplined defense, playing your keys, playing your assignments. Because, again, like I said, it's a dual threat. You have a kid that can kill you with his legs, and you also have, a guy that can kill you in the air. So, again, like I said, you have to play your keys, play discipline. And that's really the biggest thing, because if you do play a disciplined defense against the Wildcat, again, it's not going to last very long.
Yeah, and there's some disciplined defense coming to Alton Brooks Stadium this week when they face up against Scotland. Scotland, basically, that's their last game before playing Richmond in the final game of the year, which will be, once again, a battle for the Sandhills Athletic Conference, staying in the Sandhills Athletic Conference. Purnell hung around there with 71st. 71st was coming off the loss to Scotland, so you knew they were going to be emotional. There was going to be a lot of emotions in that game. But Purnell Sweat was defeated 41-12, and Brandon was the second half woes. I mean, they were down 13-7 or 13-6 going into halftime, but Purnell just couldn't capitalize.
Yeah, Purnell. I mean, I haven't really been impressed with what I've seen from them the past couple of weeks. They kind of they're very inconsistent right now. I don't think they're together as a team. They need to kind of mature a little bit if they want to compete and hopefully vie for a postseason spot.
Yeah, they've really been underwhelming since that bye week they had where they were 3-0. I think we got to blame it to the scheduling. I mean, they've played some pretty easy teams. They played Pine Forest, Douglas Byrd, and Ashley. But from there, it's been struggles. I mean, they're 0-6 right now. Since then, they played Hoggard, they played Richmond, they played Scotland, they played Jack Britt. I mean, the offenses looked really bad in the last 2 weeks. I mean, put 12 points up, and last week we saw them put up only 6 against the Jack Britt Dolphins. What do you feel like is a problem with that offense right now?
I think the biggest problem with Purnell's offense is if a team takes Chandler Brayboy out of the game, then their offense is just methodical. I mean, that's all Purnell really can boast right now is Luke Oxendon and Chandler Brayboy. The last time I saw him was against the Jack Britt. Chandler Brayboy probably had 3-4 catches, and we saw how that game when he left late with the injury. My biggest thing is they have to get some more weapons out there. I know they have the players. Aldrick Thompson is a good guy. I know they have the players. They just really have to. It's really just been one of those things after that 3-0 start. They just haven't really been clicking. But I will call it now. Luke Oxendon is going to have his best game of his career this upcoming week against Hope County. I feel it.
Everybody's been doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's been doing it. But I think Luke Oxendon is really going to, really show that there's still some fight left in the Purnell Sweat Rams. And that's what all we need to see, honestly.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then another 3-win team along with Purnell is South Robinson. They've already sealed a playoff bid, and they fall on the road to South Columbus 43-12. It was 43-0 at halftime. And then Darius Wright with 2 touchdowns in the second half. So, Brandon, we've really seen Darius Wright carry the load.
Yeah, their backfield is pretty impressive, and it's something you got to account for in the scouting report every time. I look forward to seeing him progress and continue to mature because he can become a huge weapon down the line.
Yeah, for sure. And then the Stallions improved to 9-0. They're undefeated. They've got Whiteville coming up as their last game. That will probably be their only chance at a loss this year. And Scotland once again pulls out the big win, 47-28 over Pinecrest. Samir White with 4 touchdowns and 12 yards per play on offense for the Scots. That was really a good win for them. But we'll stick with Robinson County now. We'll go to the power rankings, and it's got a little. We had a shakeup. Nobody stayed the same here. As we can see, we have the arrows provided by Professor Dollard. We'll have St. Paul's taking the jump up to 1 from 2. Red Springs goes from 4 to 2, and then we'll have South Rob takes the drop from 1 to 3 after that loss. I think Fairmont's deserved the loss after the way the offense just looked there the other night. Lumberton gets out of the cellar for the first time in several weeks. I think by the way they've been playing, they played tight with some teams. I feel like they really needed to take the jump up, and they're hanging around with. But Purnell, they've just, like we said, 0-6 since they've hit conference play and against after the bye week. It's just been a real struggle for the Rams.
Yeah.
And so guys, if we had to give a player of the week, who will we give player of the week for their best performances this week?
Only right, I say Noah Wheeler, St. Paul 7 touchdown performance. That was a great outing, young man. Just keep it up. Just keep it up.
Yeah, I would have to say that Noah Wheeler really did a good job with 7 touchdowns, 6 rushing, and 1 passing. And Brandon, what about you? Who would you say your player of the week this week would be?
I'll have to go with Lee McLean. His performance wasn't really eye-popping, but he is now the first player in Robinson County to hit 1,000 yards. So
that's a very good stat.
Yeah, it is a very good stat. He looked impressive. 123 yards. Was held out of the end zone, but things were still going good for them. They just went ground and pound, him and Jerome Bass. So, I mean, Jerome Bass had a heck of a game, too, with that rushing touchdown. Dolphus, you missed it because it was in the third quarter. He drug 2 guys with him into the end zone for a 26-yard run.
Yeah,
so,
he's a bruiser, man.
He's
a bruiser.
For sure. He's easily on his way to another Defensive Player of the Year with over 100 tackles already. So now, just one quick reminder, the Broadcasting Education Association Student Club here at UNCP has 2 fundraising nights coming up tonight at Wing Company. And you can join them from 5 to 8 at the Wing Coast. So I like Wing Company.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
some good food.
Yeah, that's the best wings in town.
Yeah, they do.
Definitely.
And get you some adult beverages if you're 21.
He said adult beverage.
Yeah, so that's always a good place to go there in Pembroke as well. And also Bojangles on Thursday from 5 to 8. So once again, we'd like to thank you guys for both being here on the show. And thanks for the control room staff, ran all by students here at UNCP. I'm your host for Inside Athletics, Jonathan Bim. Thanks for tuning in.